see, who else can I see? I don't know. Allergies have been Christine. Hi, Christine. Oh, allergies have been here so bad that y'all, I'm just tearing up just because I have like eye allergies. So just
Uh-huh.
bear with me. Uh-huh.
Just eye allergies. She's already tearing up.
I know y'all.
Just kidding.
And also seeing y'all's faces. I love this. I got a chance to work yesterday at the ranch with some beautiful, we'll be posting hopefully that story, working with a young lady who is kind of going through a time in life where her body is very constricted, to say the least. Like when you meet her, her whole body goes within, very bound. And there was this sequence of pictures that I was able to catch of her and her beautiful mother and Jean the horse meeting. And we call that making contact. And in each frame, and I guess I just kept hitting, like, just kept taking picture after picture after picture. And when I went back and I saw the frame come together, the way this young woman and Jean met like this, Jean just kept coming in and she would meet her. And then Jean would come back, come in a little bit more, and then she would meet her. All the way to where Jean ended up being where Jean put her face against this young girl's face. And it was in that sequence of contacting that because I slowed it down frame by frame, I was able to see what was being reworked in that one interaction. And what was being reworked in that one interaction was the world is not safe. I have to hold myself together to the world is safe to reach out to and to make contact with and then to be with. But again, had I not had all those different frames and to slow it down, I wouldn't have seen it. I wouldn't have seen what was happening in that moment. The arc of contacting is what we call it. And so that act of orienting and finding is so fundamentally part of the process of when we call, whether it's trauma work or whether we're talking about coming back to life. And so for me and how I was trained, I always saw it through the lens of um, how do we begin to restore aliveness? And when I see it through that lens, restoring aliveness feels for me lighter than doing trauma work or having to do, right, like all this kind of carries a heaviness to it. But that restoring alive has just a different felt sense because whether it's because years of chronic stress or because there is trauma or because there's all of the above, quite honestly, right? It's like, huh, who knows what river that comes from? But what I do know is that when we meet in the moment and have that sense of presence, it covers it all. And that restoring aliveness. So I am so thankful that that experience happened because it helped kind of under it. What it did is it gave the experience that I was able to participate in yesterday, gave a lot of credence to the concept we're going to be unpacking over the next few conversations about thaw. How do we move from functional freeze? Still can function in life, but there's parts of us that have laid dormant or that hasn't had the environment to feel safe enough to be seen, to be held, to be conversed with. What does that thawing feel and look like? And so the thing that we did on Sunday nights live, which we'll probably do another experience like that, is that remember what we always say, we are an experience-based brain. We don't learn through lectures. I mean, we understand concepts through lectures, but it's what I experience and how I experience whatever the concept is that allows it to come into my being, to where I live, move, breathe with, that knowing moves in me. It doesn't just stay head knowledge. It moves in me and through me. And so finding is the first step. So for those of us who have had to, because of years of stress or because we've lived with a on standby switch, we weren't able to actually like go on and then really shut down, restore ourselves. We've had to live in this kind of on and standby kind of field of energy. Is that we can move into hypervigilance, where we become really hypervigilant. Like in the horse world, we go a horse that really spooks because they see something and they're like, oh, what's that? So hypervigilance kind of connects also to a startle reflex. And that startle reflex, if not moved through, goes into this holding, contracting, exactly where I met that young lady yesterday. And so, hypervigilance, how do we meet that? Well, we go through these concepts of finding and orienting. So, here's what I want Ashley and Lori, if you will look at the chat for me so we can kind of see any feedback and just chime in as needed because I want this to be a conversation. I'm just kind of setting up the context for the conversation, but I want to hear from you guys in real time as to what your thoughts are, what your reflections are, because the more we share our own reflections with each other, the more what I'm going to call like there's a group think conversation concept, but there's also group intelligence. And so it actually helps us all to be able to read it and see it. Kevin, Renee, so good.
Hey
Uh,
everybody. Cricket says she loves the restoring aliveness,
Yeah.
that concept.
Yes. Restoring that sense of aliveness. And that restoring that sense of aliveness, whether it's human or horse, is that we allow the nervous system to come to a place of regulation and rest so that it's safe to feel all of the sensory input that comes into our world, which we have a lot of sensory input that comes into our world. So this is what we want to talk about is that THAW. What is it? So for us, it's going to be an acronym. T is going to stand for touch. Touch, finding where those sensations live in your body is very key. Finding those sensations without the story is going to be key. So remember, I think last week we talked about this, is that sensations and emotions are 90 seconds in the body. Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor, she said 90 seconds for us to feel an emotion. If it lasts longer than that, it's because we've placed a story on it. Now, 90 seconds is nothing to sneeze at because I'm going to say if I have to hold my breath for 15, I'm going to feel it. So again, 90 seconds, right? But what she was allowing us to understand through her research is that if we can begin to feel the raw sensations without connecting it to a story, we are giving our nervous systems and our mind and our brains a sense of space to not attach to that story. This is huge. When we allow ourselves to process the raw sensations of emotions, of movement patterns, we create enough space and pause in the brain to update information. So instead of being reflexive, we begin to create and practice the art of creating space and a pause. Nervous systems can begin to update our whole information system. Does that make sense? So that's why touch, the difference between insight and embodied change. What is the somatic signature of this belief and how does it live in my body? So, as we've talked about in previous classes, how language shapes our experiences. We've talked about how our inner conversations then are so critical to begin to reshape because our inner conversations are shaping how we experience the world and how the world experiences us. Now, the key is it's not going to be just a thought change. It's literally allowing the body to make contact with the belief, the thought, and to unwind from it from a somatic perspective, not just logic and thought. And so on Sunday, when we used our hands to make contact with where we feel it in our body, that's the moment where the making contact with, we feel found, we feel seen. And that sense of being found allows us to then orient. The finding, the orienting. We move from hypervigilance by practicing being found and orienting. Hypervigilance typically comes from a lot of changes or shocking changes or too many transitions and changes where the nervous system is just like, what if it's here? What if it's here? I need to stay on guard. Like it contributes to that reactivity. But the moment we provide ourselves with more moments of landing, finding, and orienting, we're creating a sense of internal safety, which means we're no longer dependent on the external world, what happens, what doesn't happen to determine my peace. And we say that concept and we agree with that concept, but how do you live that? How do we create that sense of embodied knowing that my internal peace does not have to be affected externally? And I'm going to say that part of that, at least in this work, is providing your nervous system, your brain, and your body with several experiences of landing, finding, and orienting. So the finding piece of it, we kind of touched on that on Sunday, is the nervous system cannot revise what it has not first located. This is not a metaphor, it's how biology actually works. The registration matters more than we can measure because the belief of XYZ, and I'm going to say the belief of I'm not enough or I'm the problem or whatever belief is holding us captive, formed in part because there was no one to find us struggling when that wound first developed, or because being found felt dangerous, being seen felt dangerous. So the body learned to manage, to compensate, and to hide everything that needed to be seen. So again, if this doesn't apply to you, what I would like to say and offer is that it probably applies to somebody in your family or in the world around you. So when we find it now, when we turns toward it, that feeling or that sensation like we did on Sunday, with warmth and curiosity rather than correction, we are already offering something to the nervous system that is a very different experience than when it was formed. And why do we not rush to address what we find? When we rush to address what we find, even though it's with the best intentions, we end up replicating the conditions that created the belief. So think about it. The belief that I'm just going to say I'm the problem, it's me, formed in an environment where what was happening in the child wasn't allowed to simply be there. It had to be managed, suppressed, overridden, hurried through. That child's internal experience wasn't met with curious presence. It was met with urgency, correction, or absence. So when we find a sensation in the body and immediately move to fix it, we are doing the same thing in miniature form. We are sending the nervous system a message that it has to be earned, that what is here is not acceptable and it needs to be changed. And the nervous system, which is always listening, concludes with what is always concluded. I am not safe to be as I am. And even this, my pain, my holding, my bracing, is something that needs to be corrected. And again, this doesn't mean that change isn't going to happen, right? This doesn't mean that we don't want to see change and we don't want to see progress. But we're talking about the very first steps of meeting either our horse or ourselves with the histories that we carry. So when we stay with what we find, when we let the heaviness in the chest simply be heavy, when we let the held breath simply be held, when we acknowledge this, that it's here without trying to move it, something begins to happen that we didn't force. The nervous system starts to regulate in the presence of attention itself. That's very important. The nervous system starts to regulate in the presence of attention itself. Just by it being attended to without that sense of force, that's what creates the softening to begin to expand the window of tolerance and our capacity to meet ourselves in this journey of change, transformation, or coming back to aliveness. And that's a big deal. It's kind of like we talked about the horse a few weeks ago that was finally let out off the racetrack, but he only knew two patterns: run for your life, or I have to be still. So when he was allowed to have the space to move as he wanted to, it took him a long time to feel safe in those other movement patterns. So as I say this, what begins to come up for y'all when we talk about the finding and allowing ourselves to be found and to sit in that presence of being found?
I'm finding that um, I'm in a space that I've never seen before, and it's like this open expanse that I don't know what to do in it.
Yeah.
And just moving, starting to move into it, just like you're saying,
Yeah.
it's exciting and it's scary at the same time, and I find myself really feeling like a fish out of water because it's a totally different space that I can do things
Yes.
in that I've never done before. Sorry. Um,
Yes. It's
so
beautiful. It's a totally new space. You just put beautiful language to what a lot of us have felt or are. And that's where, yeah,
I thought when this happened that it'd be like, oh, this is going to be great. And I'd be, having fun and frolicking around and I'd know what
yeah,
to do and I'd have all the answers that I had not had my whole life. And now it's like there's all these new questions and these new I have to furnish the space and what have you. And so it's
yes,
overwhelming yet exciting at the same time.
yes. So well said. Overwhelming and exciting at the same time. And that's where we don't want to rush. Because a lot of us want to rush to just fill in the space, right? It's like I've got all the space, I have to fill it in. That's where we allow the body to slow down because you get to live this time and this era with more intentionality than you had maybe before in the past. And meeting ourselves there through the thaw begins with contact, not correction. Armor doesn't melt when we attack it. It doesn't dissolve when we shame it. It doesn't, you can't argue it out of existence or insist it to change. Armor softens when it realizes slowly and through accumulated experiences like this that it's no longer needed. And that realization can only begin when we make contact with it first. And I always put my hands like this together because this was one of my mentors, is she'd like make contact with it. And then plus it brings your right and your left side together. And she's like, make contact with it, cross the midline of the body, hold, hold yourself in a way that actually brings regulation and not constriction. Hold yourself in a way. So when we do talk about the butterfly taps and things like that, we hold ourselves in a way where we feel support and connect versus constriction, and I need to be protected. So here's this posture. I'm still honoring what this posture is having to say, but I'm going to honor it and shape it in a way that actually brings a sense of regulation and connection. versus just protection, right? The touch, that sense of touch, and I want to explain that why in that exploration we talked about touch and make contact with it. This is going to get a little bit into some neuroscience, but it's awesome because when we begin to slow things down and understand the innate wisdom that's already here, that already lives within our nervous system and our body and how it communicates together, it gives us this sense of confidence in these kinds of conversations. So, ever wonder why your hands just know what your horse is feeling through the reins, even when your mind is overthinking every cue? Carl Jung said, often the hands will solve a mystery that the intellect has struggled with in vain. And that's exactly what happens between ourselves, and I'm going to use our horse. And if you don't have a horse, use it as a metaphor. Your fingertips are packed with specialized receptors. I'll use the scientific names, but just go with me on the what point we're getting to. It's called Merkel's. It's a type of sensing in the fingertips, and it senses for pressure and texture. Messengers for subtle movement and slip. Pacinian for vibration. All of this is captured within your hand. These, everything that our hands pick up, feed right into the brain's sensory map. And in the sensory map of our brain, hold a lot of real estate because of the nerves and because of how far reaching our hands, the messages that they receive, goes into the brain. Haptic perception turns your hand into what I would call equine translators. Active touch plus proprioception, the joint, the muscles, the senses, it lets you read tiny shifts in the horse's mouth, shoulders, back, or their hind leg, often before your conscious mind even catches up. The soft feel, the well-timed release, the hands, that's your hands, are solving what overthinking can't because it's feeling into. And why that's important to know is that that information that's coming into your hands gets transcribed through your brain and your nervous system, and it can provide a sense of safety. So for those of us that were not touched enough, for those that were overtouched or touch was never safe, this is the first part of coming back into a sense of safety with our own touch. How we make contact within ourselves is so important. And that's just the hands. So when we say haptic perception, and we'll do a post on that, it's all of that information that's pulsating and living and moving through our hands. And yesterday's experience with that young lady, as she was just brushing the horse, she was just taking it in, and that brushing the horse, just like that, allowed her to move from here to what? Here. She opened up. One hand stayed close to here, one hand moved across. And then I'd offer her, do you want to try brushing with your other hand? And that opened her body on this side. To where the end result is that she got into the round pen with the horse, and she knew her directing hand and her supporting hand. And she, as she directed, she opened her whole body up. But we moved not from here to say, hey, it's safe, it's okay. Just move out of that functional freeze. Met her where she was, made contact. I was the witness, as her mother was, as the horse was. And through that witnessing, through working through the living, moving, breathing body, she unfolded out of that freeze into a space of openness with a sense of connection and safety. But it happened through the progression of orienting, finding, making contact with, her hands coming into a place of taking in her environment. And all of that accumulated into her safety, finding ground, and being able to move with, and she even spoke more. The hands are also connected to the languaging parts of our brain. I'm watching Kevin brush Summer. So I was like, yep. So we take in a lot of information, which is why our nervous systems need those micro breaks throughout the day to say, okay, find my ground. Feel the weight come into my feet, feel the spine soften, kind of allow the pelvis to like kind of relax, and then just allow the shoulders to soften however much they can. Those moments throughout the day help our nervous system feel found, seen, received, and then over time, that creates a different sense of regulation. Regulation does not mean calm. Regulation in the way we speak of it is we're adaptable, we're able to be present with our experience and not overwhelmed by it, still feeling the emotions of it, but not feeling taken away, or that if it takes us away, we can't find our way back. We have a different sense of baseline of regulation. But again, it comes through that sense of finding and orienting and trusting the ground underneath our feet. So through the thaw, right? The second thing we're going to talk about. So we're going to start next week and really talk about that sense of touch and why that's so important. The H in thaw is going to stand for hold, learning that there is somewhere safe to land. Where can we hold this? How do we hold this belief, this thought, this compensation pattern that's lived within us for so long? And why we don't like push hard to go past that holding. Then the A for thaw is allow, letting the body finish what it started. Allowing. So T is for touch, H is for holding. How do we hold it? How do we want to reshape how we hold it? A is going to be allow. How do we allow the body, ourself and our horses, letting the body finish what it started? Meaning if there's a protective posture, that protective posture deserved to be there. What wasn't allowed was the time and the space for that protective posture to unwind into a more settled place, because we just had to keep pushing through and going. So the incomplete defense response often keeps beliefs going. And that's not in our thoughts. Again, that's in how our body holds ourselves, and it holds ourselves in relationship to these thoughts. And then the W for thaw is we're welcoming, receiving what has become possible. And people will go, why is receiving so hard? And listen, your nervous system, if it has a history of being constricted and contracted, receiving isn't an automatic thing that should just happen. It feels good. The nervous system needs to feel safe in receiving. The nervous system deserves to feel safe in being seen. Oftentimes when I worked, and this was earlier on in my life, in the area of addiction, we always knew to expect relapses at certain points in the journey. And we didn't underestimate and we didn't get moved by those relapses because we understood that those relapses were reorganizing a new knowing in their own brain and their own body and their nervous system. Because one of those things is that you can know that you deserve unconditional love. You can know that you deserve to be honored and to be esteemed and to be loved. But the moment they came in contact with that concept, their body goes, I don't know how to be with this. No one ever showed me how to be with this. And that's the truth. Look, think about when you're working with a horse and you don't know their history. We are learning in that first part, in that first phase of how can I be with this horse that creates a sense of safety within them. And that's the same thing we want to provide ourselves. And the more we can provide that for ourselves, our connection with our horses, for our kids, for our loved ones around us begins to change too. But again, the nervous system says, I know I deserve this. I know I want this. But there is a learning process into the nervous system saying, but I also need to learn how to be with this and it not overwhelm me. And so then what happens is through these micro moments of connection and understanding what those micro moments of connections offer you and your nervous system and how they begin to update a new knowing, you allow the space for the thaw to begin. You allow that you understand, this is me, my haptic perception making sense, locating where am I feeling this? I'm feeling this constriction here. I'm going to give it about 90 seconds just to move through as I kind of work with my feet, allowing my feet to really feel that sense of support of the ground. As I breathe, allowing that breath to also soften the spine. All of that brings your nervous system into a state of connection. You've located it, you've found it, you've connected with it. The energy from your hand is actually moving things through as well. And even though the content of the story hasn't changed, how your nervous system is experiencing that content has. And that's what begins to create the energy for my peace is not affected by what's happening outside of me. My peace comes from in here, and I know how to protect my peace from within. So thaw, touch, hold, allow, welcome, witness. Those will be, and for me, those are the elements of how change and transformation begin to happen.
So here's my thought. I thought whenever I first read, and I'm going to read exactly what you kind of left for us to kind of stime off of. You said you cannot somatically regulate while you're also auditioning for yourself, right? So
Yeah.
the word somatic was like super hard for me to kind of come to. It was either partel or germ plasma when it introduced the word somatic. So I had to kind of go through, breathe that, see which sentence actually identified with that. And there's the
Yes.
word regulate through those things in which either is professional or it's somewhere along the years of your colleague to colleging, right? And so
Yeah.
I found another word with how to
Yes.
somatically see that. The word
Yeah.
is signature. And I was like, what? You want my signature? No, but in the way that that affect actually demands emotional stress that we kind of pull away from the effect, right? And so a signature in that being was actually being marked, right? And so I had the fundamentals of somatically and then partel, I think it's Paritel, partel,
Okay. Okay.
that kind of went along with where this
Oh,
phrase here you left in the
yes.
worksheets, because I
Yes.
solely did not know what somatic, and I knew what to audition for though. I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, we're gonna really be auditioning. And
Yeah.
so that's
Yes.
I think that's
Oh,
pretty, breathtaking, right? To be able to
yes.
understand how we're able to muse with ourselves. You see what I'm saying? Like it does feel
I,
kind of frigidity at first, but I mean, it's either fear, flight, or, risk being in the position that you actually are, right? And so until
right.
you're able to kind of, I don't know about the sensories is where it comes to the somaticness of
Yes.
the somatic. I have someone entering now on a call and I have to.
Well, here's the thing. What I love about this, and these are what these handouts and this conversation is meant to do, is it takes you on your journey of discovery. Because that somatic signature, we all have them. It's the way in which we move. I can tell you, it's so funny because regardless of what shoes I wear in my office, people will say, I know when it's you coming down the stairs. And it's because I have a certain pattern of walk. That's my somatic signature. Right? And they're like, literally, it doesn't matter if I'm barefoot or if I have my boots on or tennis shoes. It's they can hear how I walk. And that's a somatic signature, right? And so it's one of those things where when we think about how
It's
we
kind of
think
my
lives,
phone went out, so I'm sorry about that.
oh,
But
you're good.
it did. It just and it's doing it again. I'm gonna have to be able to fix this so that I won't let this interrupt in between where I was going.
Oh,
So
well, I'm thankful that you shared that. And please, in the Facebook group, write your reflections because this is how this work grows. And for a lot of people, we've put a lot of emphasis on like mindset, and we've put a lot of emphasis on how we think. And all of this is doing is adding to the conversation as we think also through the body and the nervous system. 80% of the information that we actually process comes through the body and the nervous system up to the right brain and then over to the left. And the left brain is our logic and our reasoning. But all of that input that we're receiving from the world comes through our nervous system and our body. And so to begin to have conversations that allow the language of the body and the nervous system to really increase in its aliveness, to come to life in full color, is going to allow us to do the things that we've got to do in life, but a little less heavy, a little lighter, with that sense of more connectedness and having that sense of internal support. So just like when we use those phrases, every once in a while throughout the day, remind your muscles that your bones are there to support them. And just that little turn of that phrase, the muscles for a moment go, oh, I have internal support. And the more internal support, and we'll talk about midline support as we continue these conversations, right? The more I can locate, the more I can feel where I feel this, just the sensation of it, not the story of it, and I allow those sensations to begin to move. Again, it creates that space and that pause to not identify with the belief, the thought, or the story, so that new information can begin to come in and update those held patterns. But we first have to come to the finding, the orienting, and the pause to locate, to feel that haptic perception from our hands, be able to move some of those sensations, to make contact with some of those sensations, to remind your body of the internal support that's there. Yeah, it matters. And
Yeah,
it begins to
definitely.
change. Yeah.
So I wanted to say there's a phrase that you put on that thaw handout
Mm-hmm.
um, under allow. It's the body doesn't need to relive the past. It
Correct.
needs to finish what the past interrupted.
Yep.
I mean, wow. So I wanted to add that. So I was telling Leanna as we were getting started that whenever I started learning these things from her, I was super high functioning. I had, by choice and lack of boundaries, I was in a position where I was overloaded. And I would, function that way. And I would think this, I would feel the stress and think, well, if I can just get this, and this done, then that stress will relieve. And it might have come down a little bit, but I was just operating at this. It was just too much. So I had difficulty when she was talking about these micro breaks and recognizing where tension is. I had difficulty even being able to pinpoint
Yeah.
where it was located. That was tough. So I would do the breathing that she recommends, holding hands together, or even like just resting my hands on my thighs when I'm sitting down. And I'd have to close my eyes and really like think about the different areas of my body before I was able to start going, okay, my chest feels tight, or I feel this in my neck, or, I'm tense in my shoulders, or there were times that I would feel tension around my hips. But just being able to do that, and then also to get past the need to solve it like in the moment was
Yeah.
huge. Because like being able to just, if you're having a moment of stress, or if you're just being intentional about taking these micro breaks and doing these exercises like she's talking about, being able to identify where you're feeling tension in your body. I mean, touch it, breathe like she's saying, maybe try the, what do you call this? It's cross, or
Oh yeah.
when you're
Crossing the midline.
crossing the midline, those things right there, and kind of allow yourself to let go of the need to name it, define it, solve the problem, and if you may not even know what the root cause is. You may not know what led to that, reaction, or what's going on in you. And that's fine. It will come, right? It will come, because with doing those things, is helping to regulate, and it creates a space mentally and emotionally to
Yes.
be able to just begin. But it's so foundational. And then even if you do know, if you already know, maybe you've had some therapy, or maybe you've been learning and you've identified the thing, the trauma, whatever it is in your past that is causing that reaction or that stressor, the feeling, you don't have to grab onto that right then. Just let yourself
Yes.
notice and touch it and live and be with it first, and slow down that process, because it will come.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's what Kevin just said. The longer we're doing compensatory patterns, the more time it said that it will take to get past it will come. Absolutely. Lori, that was so brilliant to land there, because it's and I want to read you guys a quote here, which is great. And this came from a neuroscientist. The capacity for new forms of response depends on whether the system can register and incorporate information that falls outside its current organization. So that pause is needed so that we can register new information. If we don't give it the pause and the space, it's just going to default to what's common, comfortable, and repeatable. If incoming signals are not detected, not retained, or not allowed to alter the existing structure, the system will continue to reproduce established patterns even as conditions shift around it. The capacity for new forms of response depends on whether the system can register and incorporate information that falls outside its current organization. If incoming signals are not detected, not retained, or not allowed to alter the existing structure, the system will continue to reproduce established patterns. And so the very fact that we come here to this place of creating that sense of pause, allowing those sensations to move through, creates new information, allows a space for new information to come in. And so know that this week, as you practice the finding, as you practice the orienting to what you find without having to fix it, but also meeting that sense of ground with your breath and the softening of your spine, know that it's beginning to do that work, and we'll take this step by step. And the reason we don't go from here to just what people would call like trauma release or do this, it's because that it could overwhelm the nervous system. We have to allow the nervous system to have space to hold what it's going to meet and make contact with it without it giving overwhelm and shutting down. And again, this practice also works for when you do feel warmth, or you're feeling seen, or you feel connected to, or you're feeling joy. I'm going to highlight this. Go through the same finding and contacting of where that joy lives in your body, because that is part of Dr. Rick Hanson's work, which was several handouts ago, which is called Taking in the Good. He said it took time. He said 2 to 3 minutes to wire in the good. Contact it, feel it, describe it. The more descriptive we are, the more the nervous system and the brain registers something as important. And so even in the joy, and especially when you come across the good, do the same process. Find it, locate it, orient to it, take it in, allow the time and the space to do its work. Good conversation, you guys. Very thankful. Thankful for each one of you that show up, because showing up is the greatest act of hope. It is the greatest act of that sense of coming back to yourself, and that sense of increasing that sense of aliveness. And that's hopeful. So thank you guys. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. We're going to create a space so that we can all talk, because we need to have community conversations. I know that I'll teach one day, but hopefully what we're looking at is to have the week to where we can also dialogue about these concepts. How are they living? And so for you guys that contributed to the conversation here, your presence, there's so many different ways to contribute. These conversations are living, moving, breathing. They should be. They should not be stagnant. They should not be lectures. They should be points of reflection. And hopefully we'll see how these points of reflection move into our daily lives. So keep sharing your stories because we're here. We're so thankful for you guys. Ashley, do you have anything to say?
No, I think I'm good. I had a fence guy come, so I was MIA
Okay.
for a minute. No, I love it. I think it's great. And I think too is I know this can seem overwhelming to some, right? She's using new lingo and new language. Go back. Remember to go back to the beginning. Take little tiny nuggets and work at a one little thing at a time. I mean, I caught myself yesterday with the filly. I have 2 fillies that I'm working on. But I was like, oh my gosh, like slow down. Like these things have never been sprayed with fly spray before, right? It's like a freaking gorilla to them. So like, here's the fly spray bottle. This is what it does, right? Watching their breath, my breath. Like, am I getting tense? Just slowing down. And remember too, guys, like we could keep throwing stuff at you, but are you using it? Are you
And that,
actually going to use this stuff?
yeah.
Right? Because this is a lifetime of knowledge. Leanna is here we go. So make sure you go back in and go look at the handouts from the past.
Oh, yeah. Because I think you
Practice
guys,
one, write about it. We want to know. We want to know, right?
yeah.
Like, what do we go forward with? Do you guys even like this stuff? Right? Like, share. We want to know. So don't stay so quiet.
Well, everyone needs your voice.
Yes.
And if you
Yes.
voice something, guess what? It's voicing something that somebody else either doesn't have the space within themselves to say it. And so it's a beautiful thing to grow in community because that's how we know in relational neuroscience, they say you heal and grow in relationship and through relationship. And
Yes.
so creating that sense of understanding of what, again, all of this work changes how we move through life and how life moves through us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's good too, Lori, is we want to know if there's anything you're like, hey, Leanna, can
Yeah.
you actually slow your roll? Like, tell us,
Yeah.
if we're going too fast. Listen, guys, like in the beginning when I heard Leanna, I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's no way, right? My brain with all her lingo, like, I don't know this stuff. I know what trauma is, but like, I don't know what you're talking about. So like, if you need us to slow down or go back and touch on something, like speak it, say it, we need to know because we're not going to be right. Our goal is to talk to all walks of, hold on, Coco. Our goal is to talk to all walks of people, right? People that are not Leanna's colleagues, that don't, right? I want everyone to be able to understand it. And if you don't, please tell us.
Yeah.
We want to help.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Lori, go ahead. I saw you raise your hand.
Um, Hi.
Hi.
I've been wondering lately if like I all of what you're sharing like applies to everybody. Um, how many I'm going into like the level 1 neurodivergent like autistic, ADHD or those things. Like everybody like they're labels, but they can help you maybe decide how or people to see how you respond. Um, are everybody has some form of a label, right?
Yes. Right. Yep. Absolutely. Hmm. Labels are how we make sense of things, and sometimes, and this is the thing is that to be able to name things can help us make sense of things, and that's where if it helps us make sense of things and it helps us, it informs us how we need to show up. So if I'm working with a child who has dyslexia, it's helpful because then I know how to show up and best help. And so this is where we see the naming of things through relational neuroscience. If the naming of it helps you make connection with it and understand it more deeply, wonderful. That's why I always say you'll find your own language. And I know that sometimes it's overwhelming. Yes, Tracy, it can be because it's a new language, right? And that's why, like today, we talked about just practicing the concept of locating, finding, and orienting. and then allowing that to have its space. And when we do that, it's going to translate to when we're out either under saddle or we're out in the world, that things can happen around us and our nervous system and our brain doesn't want to go quickly into reactive mode. It feels like it has the space to actually step back, look at it, and respond. And that's the key of helping bringing our nervous systems down to a sense of regulation and connection. But the way we do that is through those small micro acts throughout the day of finding, locating, where am I? Where is this sensation? Not attaching to the story immediately, giving it that time and space, and knowing that that's allowing the brain to say, oh, goodness, then she's actually in a space where she doesn't have to be as reactive. We have space now to be responsive. So we're training ourselves like we train our horse.
Yeah, I can give a quick little example, guys. Like, because I know a lot of us are good with like an example. Okay, that's cool, Leanna, but how did you do that, right? So, like, yesterday, just a random, this one filly, like one is really sweet and the other one kind of wants to punch me in the face a little bit. She'll move her butt around and want to kick at me and pin her ears and she's tried to bite me, right? And so I've been carrying some one I carry like warm fuzzies with, one I'm a little bit like, oh boy, like, is she going to whack me? But I have to watch myself, right? Things like that. Like, it's noticing what you're carrying in that moment, noticing what you're showing up with. Like, oh man, I just noticed right when I saw platinum, I got real forward and tense. Like,
yes,
you punch me, baby, I'll punch you right back. Not really, but just, in my mind, just like that fight mode. Like, you want to fight me?
But you said forward. You felt your body go forward, and
immediately intense.
Yes.
And like my heels start coming off the ground. It's those things, guys, in life, not with the horse, with your kid, with your colleague that you can't stand, right? In Walmart, when they, cut you off in the cereal aisle. Like, did you know what I mean? Just noticing these little things all throughout the day of like, okay, wait a minute, Ashley, like, you can't just move forward right now. Like, feel the ground beneath your feet. Let your spine soften. Like, you start just these things Leanna's talking about, you start realizing it. Like, I'll do some squeezes. And what's crazy, guys, with these fillies, I've got to record it. I'm going to record it tonight. I'm doing it. I will hold myself accountable. But it's like they change right off that. I'm not even touching her. And then she'll go, and then she'll start doing this, putting her head to the ground, right? So it's like the visual, it's cool with the horse because there's like a visual reaction right here.
Yes. Yep.
So hopefully that helps someone. It's noticing your being throughout the day.
Yep. That is well said. Let's see here. I love this. You get immediate feedback. Yep. If you think it will happen, positive or negative, it will. The brain is a powerful muscle in the body. It is. Approach determines response, no doubt. Brooke, now you're working to apply these same concepts to the kids. Absolutely. Yep. I love this. It's like the horse makes us a better person, and now we get to really deep dive into that process for ourselves, for those around us, and our horse. So I'm so thankful for you guys today. We will keep the conversations coming in bite-sized pieces so they're digestible. We are thawing, which means we are going to find, orient, locating those sensations, and seeing what comes up for us this week. You guys, love each and every one of you.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
See ya.